Hello, everyone. It's our second podcast for Raisa's Talk. And with us today, we have Lorena, which you should have already watched our recording together, the official podcast. And today's session is going to be more of a Q&A, catching up since last time we talked. Lorena, do you want to say a quick hi?
Hola, hello, buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Looking forward to the chat that we will be having.
Yeah, of course. And for context, we are coming off of a very busy month. We had WISIS conference, Women in Cyber, and RSA as well. I actually had a canceled flight, so that was fun. Not too bad to be stuck in San Francisco, though. Lorena, were you at RSA this year?
Not this year, but I
Not
was
this
at the
year.
WISA's conference,
WISIS
DC,
conference.
and it was a joy, and it was just so amazing to be in community. And there was a couple hiccups with the travel too, but you know what? We are troopers.
We
We're
made it.
resilient. This is what we
Oh,
do in
that's right.
cybersecurity, right? This is what we do.
Yeah.
We're resilient. So
Oh my
we if the
gosh.
plan A doesn't work, we go into our business continuity playbooks or our playbooks, disaster recoveries. We're like, what do we do next?
That's right. Okay, so speaking of cyber, maybe our audience wants a little refresher if they haven't watched our podcast, our episode yet. What is it that you do in cyber? Because you do a lot of things. You wear many hats. Ah, you're on
Thank
mute.
thank you so much. So, a little bit about me. I'm a bit of a Jackie of all trades. Um, really, where I've excelled is raising my hand and saying, "What can I learn and take on?" And what I don't know, I try to get a good baseline understanding. So, where I'm at now, like I work for a Fortune 20 organization, and I'm with the office of the BISO. And what is the BISO? It's the Business Information Security Office. It's the team that works side by side, the Chief Information Security Office, and you're thinking about cybersecurity and information security and risk management, but also plugging in the business, working with business partners, and really just making sure that, when programs, services, products are being developed, that you guys are, you know, security is really at the forefront, and teams do really great at that. And my role is to navigate those conversations and those strategies, whether it's integrating or implementations. And I also am, overseeing different programs like vulnerability management standardization, security incident response, and a few other programmings. Portfolio program management is one thing that I oversee, but really what I'm proud of is my journey of taking everything that I've learned and became a mentee to a mentor, and not only a mentor but really became my own business owner where I'm now career coaching individuals who want to step into AI and cyber. That's something that I really have a passion for. I now have my own company since we last connected. I stood up my own company, and it's really about empowering individuals and helping them find their way and letting them know that you don't need to be a techie to be in tech, but it's important to know the baseline. And then,
Absolutely.
sitting on a couple of boards, I'm really proud of my journey. I'm looking forward to sharing more.
Absolutely. I love it. So let's start with the name BISO, right? I think a lot of us know CISO, and I know it doesn't exist in every organization. With the larger the organization, there's more opportunity to have that role as well. So, how would you differentiate the two of those?
With the BISO, you think they have to have the technical aptitude, but they also have to have the business strategy and know-how. They have to be able to really work well with the business and have those conversations about, what does security look like at the at proof of concept, at ideation, right? And you're thinking about really having those conversations about not only strategy, about how are you going to sustain these products and these programs, right? It's not just about deployment, but making sure that we're really having a secure by design approach from concept all the way to deployment and sustainment. So everybody feels comfortable and confident that you are really covered from the front end, but also the back end and avoiding technical debt, right? That so many companies may run into. So the BISO really helps the technical teams and the chief information security teams really navigate those conversations about not only technology, but the governance and the risk and the compliance, and helping with those assessments and those larger client conversations and vendor conversations that may take a little bit more of security awareness and know-how to massage the conversations.
Love it. And for the audience that joining, feel free to post your questions anytime. We'll take them as we go. There is an official podcast that we recorded with Lorena out there that was already posted. So the goal for today is more of a catch-up conversation since last time we talked, and then take audience questions. So Lorena, BISO office process engineer, how does one fall into that? I think I heard the term GRC. I know that's been the hot thing for like the past, I don't even know like what years, how many years. But how does one fall into that? And if this is not such a common role that is out there, how did you end up in this position?
Love that question. You always come with it. All right. Well, let me
Well, we
share.
want to know. It
Yeah,
sounds cool, right?
yes, absolutely. Well, think about a process engineer, almost like a security operation controls manager, or like SOC, or thinking about like the cybersecurity information security manager, and then you're integrating optimization. You're thinking about innovation. You're thinking about, okay, if something new is coming on board, how does it affect not just our team, but how does it affect all the teams that we're working with? Is having that horizontal and that vertical lens, and saying, wait a minute, how does it not only, how do we work then with the other groups, right? How are we delivering? What is the outcome? How does it map to the larger strategies? Having vision and foresight and saying, how are these new integrations or optimizations or whatever it may be, how are we documenting it to make sure that standardization is key for everybody? Because change is going to happen, right? But you got to make sure that it's done in a way that is um, that could be documented so that people could understand what they're doing, that it's communicated in a way that people really understand the messaging. And if you have to do it in more than one way, not just not just in writing, but maybe it's in office hours, maybe it's having small conversations, but it's really having more ways of raising awareness of ways of working, and really understanding that breaking down those silos is so key, and especially knowing what we do and how it ties into governance, risk, compliance, right? Because innovation is going to happen, right? But we just got to make sure that we're always mapping to that guiding light, which is our enterprise policies and so forth. And and I say this as, just in generalization, not so much from you know um, you know from where I'm at right now. But I say this, that in general, most of the office of the BISO is just there to be that liaison of making sure that we are keeping our eye on security requirements, but also that technology is moving forward, and that we're doing it in a methodical way, and then we're including all the right stakeholders, and expect to have buy-in.
So if I were interested to look into a role in the BISA office, what are some keywords or ways to really search for that? I mean, a way I can think of is look up the local BISOs in your area, follow their work on LinkedIn, for example, and be on the lookout if they have job openings. That's a little bit more long-term approach, but and
Yeah.
form those relationships. Are there any like titles, keywords we can use to look
Yeah.
up a role like yours?
Yeah. So my role is unique. So when I was looking at, what role did I want to, step into, because it's really about, um, spotting your super hidden powers. I knew that I was in business architecture. I was doing technical product management, and taking both of blends of those skills and thinking, okay, how could I apply this with cybersecurity, and how could I apply this within this team? I thought, well, process is always needed, is always key. mapping processes, technology processes to policies is so important. And especially when it comes to standardization and making sure that we're all working in the same fashion to have the same outputs, but delivering the excellence, right? Um, and also, making sure that uh, to me, optimization was so key. And so I thought, okay, well, security engineering is I really like that title, but this is really more of a focus on security and process and procedure and policy and how do I find and so it was something that I pitched. I created that, as I started seeing how could I look at that. So if there isn't a role that's available out there, go check it out. Look for a blend of roles. So what I like to say is track what lights you up. Notice the activities whether it's organization, whether it's gathering stakeholders, whether it's the ideation process and you're actually putting the ideas together and you're road mapping it, you're putting the milestones and you're tracking some of this. I mean, really think about your superpowers. Look at the impact, right? Look at the circle that you're with and who your stakeholders that you're working with. Start to connect the dots and think about, if that role doesn't exist, what can I pitch to my team? But think about the return that you're going to give, right?
Mm.
Think about your technical acumen skills, but your soft skills are so important too, right? We're talking about, those negotiation skills, those ways of working, those ways that are going to help us communicate better to be able to deliver together better, right? And be authentic, right? It doesn't always have to be at the corporate jargon. We're better when we have that human one-on-one conversations, respectful, mindful of each other, and know that our backgrounds are not all linear. We don't have the same background, from high school to college to straight to cyber and whatever that role may look like. But we all learn from one another and be open. So some of the roles I would look out for, like security operations manager, security controls, going to the if you like if you like to investigate and you like to discover incident management and incident response are great, roles to dive into. And there's different leadership roles in that within there. But I would say think about what lights you up. And I would definitely, one site that I like to tell my mentees about and that I would like to, I have no affiliation. This is not an ad, no plug.
Not sponsored content.
But check
If
out
they want to sponsor us
check
for
out right, hey, right. But check out cyberseek.org. They have like a great mind map. What's like a mind map from entry level to mid level to executive
yeah, I love
level.
those.
And then it tells you like not only what roles, but the descriptions, how many job openings are available, um, what job descriptions and what type of skills you need to have. Hey, here are the size certifications that are nice to have. But remember that 40 to 45% of job employers, yes, they want to know about your bachelor's degrees and your college degrees, but they also want to know what can you do? What type of work have you done? Tabletop exercises, hackathons. Um, Celebrate your superpowers, document that, and then start to look at roles, not titles. Look at impact.
So much goodness where did I even start? Um, so it sounds like this is not something you just fall into without experience, right? You have collected all these experiences throughout your career, and then you got to a point where you pitched your own role because you're such a jack of all trades. Um, I do think like you need some experience to get into a role like
Oh
this.
yeah,
But obviously that shouldn't let anyone listening not pursue it, right? This can be the end goal, and along the way you build up experiences. But I still recommend you have one that you're a little bit like it's more of your superpower. One
yes,
thing I want you to talk about a little bit is you mentioned earlier processes, and I know when we had the episode, you talked about merger and acquisitions as well. So your role is supporting those when a company acquires a new organization. They all look at each other like, oh, like we use different systems, we do cybersecurity maybe differently, and those have to integrate. So what does that look like? What's your involvement in a process like that? What have you learned from it that you want to share? Because I think that's very interesting and not talked about enough,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That's a really great question. Well, I will talk about it from just a general experience and not so much from my company's lens.
Right. Yeah.
Um, um, from a general perspective, the Office of the BISO really is there to assist with making sure that the security tools and the environments that you're migrating from and then into are not going to cause too much business disruption. And but everything is being done with a very close lens to make sure that you're working with cloud teams, identity access teams, um, uh, privilege access management teams, vendor management teams. I mean, there's so many teams and domains that you're working with. I mean, you think about like almost at an airport where you have somebody like kind of like what is that individual who's doing with the little lights navigating the
Yeah.
traffic?
I
The
don't
air
know.
traffic controller,
Sure.
maybe. Oh my
I don't
gosh,
know. Are they up there? Or are they what's
oh
it?
my gosh. Okay. Well, like, no, so but you're navigating in between
Yeah.
both companies and saying, and because, I have mergers and acquisitions in my prior backgrounds in different companies, really it's about making sure that when you're migrating those individuals, those teams, those processes, those functions, that you are really mapping what does it look like from their current environment into their new environment, and then identifying what is that gap, what is the risk, what is the gap that if we do migrate, what does that timeline look like, who are key players. It's navigating all that. It's having all those conversations, bringing all those teams. And absolutely, I definitely agree with you. This role, Office of the BISO, is more of that mid-level to moving into that exact level role. What I always say, it's important to know the net, you don't need to be a techie to be in tech, but you need to know the baselines. You need to know infrastructure. You need to know what networks are. You need to know what Windows are. You need to know what a database team is to work like. You need to know some of these domains, and not necessarily for you to necessarily do the work, right? You need to know the vulnerability management, what scans are. Maybe you're not the one doing the work, but you need to know what the outcome is, what the purpose is, what the tools are, right? So that if you do step into the infosec side, right, you have that baseline of what tools, who the people are, who the key players are, and what the outcomes are, and what your role is from that governance, risk and compliance, or risk management, or mergers, or strategic. Because and it's also working on strategy. What's the long term picture look like? Um, so from the mergers and acquisitions, making sure that you just have a really good plan, a good team together, a good current state and future state, and that anything that is at gaps that you guys are accounting for and prioritizing and have good risk controls around, and those are absorbed within each teams, and those discussions are had, and that when full integration comes, really you will have accounted for a good security hygiene. And now really it's about just keeping the lights on, right? And making sure that the teams have continuous learning, education, and continue to be further embedded and integrated in the enterprise.
I love that. And one thing to note is that you don't have to be in a role like this to think cross-functionally, meaning if a role like this is your target and you know eventually you want to get to the BISO role or around supporting the BISO of an organization, you can start now kind of like implementing what Lorena said, meeting people. And the goal of this podcast eventually is to get to a point where so many people from different career pathways in cyber so that you're aware of what does a business unit really do, what are their KPIs, their metrics, and that way you're already learning each person's language, job, and when you get to that stage, you're able to say, well, I don't have working experience in each group, but I do know the language they speak. I know this is what they
Yes,
care about, and at the end of the day, that will make you a better colleague, employee, because you're able to translate from one group to another and then cater to this bigger goal. So don't wait to be in the perfect role. Start reaching out to people in vulnerability, in database, and in IT infrastructure. I can't even tell you in my day to day how much these don't talk to each other. So when
Yeah.
we have one person that can be the glue and translator between all of them, it's like gold. So don't
Yeah.
wait, start reaching out and like building those connections so that like even when you are in the role, you actually have this own little network of yours that even better, not in your company, but you know person that did XYZ, vulnerability management and at another company. You can have thought leadership conversation as to what you're seeing and I take that back. My customers talk to each other all the time, like if they're in doing cybersecurity in law firms. They
Yeah.
all know what's happening, right?
Yes.
Don't wait for vendors to tell them.
Yeah. So, and also one more thing I want to add is when you're thinking about like the office of the BISO, where do they sit from the red team, blue team, or purple team? I like to think it's a hybrid of like the purple team because they're helping the red and the blue teams combine, like they're, like to take action. But I also think it's a little bit of the blue team because they're helping like detect, prevent, respond, but from an operational and strategy
Operational
perspective.
strategy,
Yeah.
right?
So, I think it's worth exploring. Um, there's different roles. There's information security analyst roles within there. There's security analyst roles. There's many responsibilities that could lead up to those roles. But definitely, like you said, take on networking, learning, and just definitely be curious. Always be curious because it's always changing. So always be learning. Yeah.
So in your role right now, I'm trying to have people think about would I be happy doing this or would it absolutely drain the life out of me? So it sounds like you talk to a lot of people, different stakeholder management type of work. Are you on calls all the time? Are you doing a lot of individual work? Is it good balance, sending email, coordinating back and forth? Is it like a program management type of role? Maybe paint a picture for us, like a almost like a warning as to like if you don't like this, probably going to something else, right? Not to discourage personality. I'm not saying you have to be a social creature, but um, I want people to understand that even if you're not perfect at this, but it sounds enticing to you, you can still get there because it's like you practice every day the skills. So, like, paint a picture for us. What does the day to day look like in
Yeah.
this mysterious BISO role
Well, in general, let me
in
speak it in
general? Yeah.
generalities. I could say that, the office of the BISO role, or could in my role, it could look at in a variety of ways, across many companies.
Operations and
Operation. It's going to be
strategy.
definitely it's a combined combination of definitely operation and strategy, right? Because you're going to be pulled in a lot of meetings about change management and new innovation. So you're
Mhm.
going to have to be able to navigate the conversations between the business and the security teams and the technical teams. So there's a lot of being able to know your audience, right? Because you're going to have to present, negotiate, uh, champion ideas and champion change to different audiences. And sometimes, um, you know, every audience may have their own way of working, but your mission is to get everybody to align on one common goal. So being able to navigate difficult conversations sometimes, but being able to champion what the return on investment ultimately would be for everybody and help see the big picture is what you're going to have to be able to navigate through. Um, and being able to raise your hand and question the the common the day to day, right? You have to be able to have foresight and saying, is there a new way to do this XYZ activity? And, we've been talking to a couple of teams. Part of your role is to work with different customers and clients and stakeholders and also gather what is working and what isn't, right? So that we could better deliver from, because we have multiple stakeholders. Um, you have to be able to know your audience, know how to negotiate, know how to have difficult conversations, because not always will you be able to have a decision that will ultimately lead to full buy-in, but it's ultimately with a shared mission. Um, and I think it's going to be important that when you're stepping into these roles, that these roles align with your personal and organizational values and culture, right? The workplace, is it hybrid? Is it remote? Is it because there is a lot of long hours, and in cybersecurity, you will be on call. It is just the nature of the industry, right? And I think that even happens in many BISO roles. I think it's important to know, do you want to work collaboratively or independent? And my
Mhm.
role is a hybrid of both, where I'm accountable for many programs and responsible um, team deliverables across vertically and horizontally. But it's being able to work with those teams because of the different hierarchies, and know that we all have a common cause. And when you remove the gatekeeping or the stage gating, and really just focus on collaborative collaborative efforts and collaborative work, I think you deliver really greatly. So come with a solution. If something isn't working, it's going to be very important. Come with a solution, and sometimes more than one,
Mm.
because again, you're going to be catering to multiple audiences. And or if you see something, say something, raise your hand. And if you don't have a solution, highlight the different 2 to 3 risks, different opportunities, because that's when you're going to get individuals to buy in your ideas. You have to be able to build a good business case and a business story when you're working with these teams, because sometimes you're going to be in charge of these big pitches, and you're going to be working with CIOs, CTOs, um, sometimes preparing material that's going to go to boards. And so you have to be able to deliver on the fly and know that there is going to be high accountability, and everything is moving at a high pace. So um, yeah, as long as you're able to know that. But it's exciting. It really is
Yes,
exciting. It's
yes,
almost like a thrill. So there is
it
long
is.
hours, but it's high
But
return. High return, yeah.
unless we scared you off, then maybe I don't know. Maybe consider why you were scared of by those words. Just consider
Yeah,
this your warning, right?
yeah, yeah.
But what I got from this is that it sounds like such a cross-functional role that it sets you in the path for like leadership, true like leadership in an organization.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
already are a leader in a way, right? But for those pursuing that very official title down the road, it sounds like a good opportunity. I have a
Yeah.
question for you. Feel free
I
to
have two.
navigate as you
Yeah,
want,
let's
but
see. I have two in the audience too.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So which business unit in this type of role has been the hardest, most challenging for you to learn to speak their language, and maybe why?
I don't know if there is one that is hardest. I
Okay.
think that one that is really up and coming, and I think that is really new to many of us, that it's like, okay, we're all learning to kind of navigate, is AI, right? I think is there's so many tools, there's so many learning language models, there's so many different. I mean, I feel like I'm like, hold on, I just learned this one. I'm like, something else is coming up. So that is for me personally, in that, I'm upskilling. I feel like I'm there learning and growing, but I feel like there's always opportunity to continuously learn that area. So I don't know if it's so much a challenge in um in because there's a gap. I believe it's because everything's so new, and the guardrails, everybody's trying to learn about the guardrails that we should really have. Um and it's so important, and they're being put in place. But really, it's just learning. I think continuously learning. I think um for me, it's making sure that I can speak the same language when it comes to AI, because there is so much coming out. Yeah.
We have a question. How many years in your career were you when you felt confident to suggest a better way to solve problems and present that to leadership?
Oh gosh. Early on in my career, don't wait. You don't have to wait a certain tenure if you see that there's an opportunity to solve something for the team, because
Yeah.
build you are making something that's going to be improved to deliver for for the greater good for whatever company you're working on. If it's going to cut time but still be in compliance, it's still deliver a good result, and it's like um it's about optimization. It's about, if did you find an automated way to do it? Did you find that, hey, um, I think there's always time. It's about your pitch. It's about how you present that idea. And I started doing it early on. I really did. I mean, how I started if you listen to my podcast, I went from very humble role from being a domestic worker, cleaning floors, to stepping into a my first role in a corporate job, being a receptionist, and the first 2 weeks, um, being in that reception board, being moved and promoted into working into a VP role, into not VP, working for the VP as his apprentice. And it's because I had so many questions and I was
Mm.
asking, and they saw so much curiosity in me that I was able to move and excel. Let me tell you, but I wasn't great at, I don't know how many calls I disconnected. I'm so sorry, but I'm sure they had callbacks, I wasn't great at receptionist, but I had great eye. And like, why are we doing this or that? That VP had an opening in his department and saw something in me because I was asking so many questions and saw. So I think you don't have to wait. It's about how you pitch your idea.
Absolutely, I love that. And don't wait when talking about, let's say you have an idea in the back of your head and you want to go about presenting it. Don't wait for like an official way to really like present and like do like a pitch deck. Um, because honestly, the buy-in happens before you enter the room. You have to collect your people that you see as influential, and like grab them one-on-one and like talk to them about your idea, right?
Yes,
So then when you get to the room, they already know, and they can vouch for you. And this took me a
absolutely.
while to understand in corporate as an immigrant because you have to learn the language. But yeah, the you don't pitch your idea in the room, in the hallway before the meeting, or
Yes.
very much prior to it. So,
Yes, I love this. This is all great feedback. I see one more question in there.
yes. So should we have two? How do you find balance in a role like this?
For me, it's about grounding. It's about, you know what, in tech, we move so fast. We move so fast. Shout out to the women of cybersecurity. They keep me grounded. Shout out. Because we recently had a luncheon and we had a event where we talked about hacking your health. And we talked about cybersecurity and information security and GRC roles are so high in demand, fast paced. You have to keep up. That it's important for me and for many of our professionals to find a moment to reset, re-energize, so that we could be our our best for our teams and not only for ourselves. So different grounding techniques that I take is journaling. Um, Journaling on here, my in my notebook, grateful for what I'm grateful for. Just taking a few moments. For me, it's I'm into my chakra stones. It's holding my stones. It's going outside, grounding in with grass. It's letting the sun um, just
Do its
based
thing.
under the
Yeah.
sun. Yes, just find a little bit of joy, right? Somebody's There's a group that I'm in, and they talked about creating a smile file. I was like,
Oh, what's
that
that?
is so awesome. Think about all, as you're going along in your day or your week, and you're accomplishing some things. Put it in your write a notebook about that one line item about what you did. And those days when you're feeling bad, when those tough days that come through, go to your smile file and open it up, and it's a reaffirmation of all the great things that you are, all the great things that you did. whether it's technical or just even just outside in your day-to-day life. I thought that's such a great way to ground. So, really find your zen. If it's going out there on a walk-in community, do it. If it's exercise, get out there. But definitely do something in movement, and find your joy in what and lean on community. Raices is a wonderful community. You have it here. Reach out. We're here
Join
to.
Discord.
Yes, yes, that chat. Say, here's I'm trying to learn XYZ, or guess what? This is what's going on at the office. How do I navigate these conversations?
Yeah.
Lean on respectfully, but in community, because that's where you go ahead and build and lean on and rise together. So that's where I get it. Yeah. That's
I
where I
love
ground.
that. And you know what? It sounds so it sounds like a lot of simple things. And we're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I do that. But like, if I look at my day to day, I probably don't, I'm not as like diligent about doing those. And that's when I feel the most off balance. But
Yeah.
I think it's worth talking about community a lot because you really champion that. And if there's I don't think I've met more like someone more energizing than you, honestly, with like all the work you're doing, and you still have that energy and drive and motivation to the point where you deliver that and you help others through your business, right? So I don't know if you want to speak to any of that, but
Oh, you
that's
know
nice.
what? To me, it's just really about the big four. To me, it's about what I say is, if you want to roar, if you want you're ready to launch to your greatness, it's about mentorships, right? And where do you get that with Raices, right? You get that with communities of practice, career coaches. Reach that out within your network. Doesn't have to be me, but just have to lean on somebody, even a friend. Be like, hey, would you help me be accountable for? I said I was going to apply to 3 jobs in this month and at least try to get one interview. Try to help me keep me accountable. It's about leaning on your circle, right? Hey, can you? I said that I was going to go ahead and write my resume and upload it on LinkedIn by the end in a month, or I was going to get 2 recommendations on my LinkedIn so that when folks go out and reach out and learn about me, they see that I've done good work through the voice of somebody else. Think of it like a survey, but it's through the voice of the customer. What better than somebody else to say in their words what you've
Mhm.
done, right? Think about your resume of saying what I do. Think about your LinkedIn as your website, as your page, as your this you leverage your LinkedIn. It's your page to say this is who I am. If you can't create a website, boom, you got it there. Leverage it. Be creative on there. It doesn't have to be boring. You could connect, you could engage, you could create your community, your network, your hive, right? There's so much that you could do through that. Your sponsors, you're going to find somebody who's going to see you, who's going to see your work through mentorship, who's going to see that you've had that accountability, and that you've done that work taking your certificates, right? Going to those classes, taking on classes, virtual workshops, mentorships. And that person, the next time there's opportunity, guess what? They say your name. They say your name for the next project. They say your name for the next opportunity to speak, because they see you, they're seeing your growth. And then networks, networks, networks. Make sure that you stay connected with your networks. Find those learning and development, those communities of practice. They will offer you shadowing programs. They will give you volunteerism where you could learn, you could give back. This month's Women's History was Give to Gain. What could you give? And it's not about self gaining, but what does the community gain? How can we uplift one another? Join summits. That's how you could really grow. These are power tools, your big four, your mentorships, your career coaches, your sponsors, your networks. And all those you could get right here.
Yeah, very true. And I want you all to think about what Lorena said about documenting and showcasing your work and what you're great at. It doesn't have to be in a cringy way, but a lot of us that come from underserved and underrepresented communities, immigrants, we don't always have the luxury of having parents at home to show us how to, uh, I don't even know what the word is, but how to showcase your work. And some cultures are a little bit more shy about
Yes.
um, bragging or really celebrating your wins. I've put it into practice the past 2 years on LinkedIn. I document, and a lot of my work, I don't create content necessarily, but I am part of all these communities of practice Lorena is talking about. And one thing leads to the other. And I'm not only thinking about doing things for myself, but like multiplying the impact and creating systems in place and opportunities
Yes.
for others. But
Yes.
if we don't document that work, because we are
Yes.
nonprofits, we're not gonna maintain ourselves. So we have to present and market the work we do. And it's okay if others say like, oh, we get on LinkedIn and they make fun of it or like it's a cringy platform.
Yeah.
Guess what? A lot of the people that post that, they're a little privileged to say that, right? What a privilege to be able to say that, oh, I get on here and all I hear is people celebrating accomplishments. Yeah, because we can't afford, we don't have other platforms.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be LinkedIn. You can
Right.
pick a different platform. It can be
Yes.
a blog where you document your labbing work
I
or
love that.
your growth in cybersecurity. Pick one and be great at it, but like what matters is that you showcase what you're good at because there's so much competition out there and for underrepresented underserved communities it's very hard for us to we have the best skills out there. I mean, we're
Hmm.
resilient by this by design, literally. And for us not to be able to talk about that, it's sort of like a miss. So I would welcome you all to challenge yourselves and pick your own platform and showcase what you're good at and then multiply the impact.
I love it. Yeah. And in here in the chat, going into that conversation, really, when we're talking about LinkedIn and leveraging it, it's a way where you could stand out, champion your volunteerism, champion your networking,
Mm,
champion those virtual workshops that you've attended, champion the ones that you've done on site and virtually. You know why? And go ahead and join the ones on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has some really good free virtual workshops. And you would be surprised I mean, the networking that you could get out of those workshops, out of people just seeing that you're attending. They may be that person who opens up that door to that next opportunity, to that next role. I mean, and then not only that, I think, it's important to have on hand your elevator pitch and a meet me card, Um, create your platforms, not only just in LinkedIn, but podcasts, blogs, like you said. And On my page, I have a section that talks about top LinkedIn profiles, 19 sections. This was something that I found online, but I think it's really great, to just take a look at your LinkedIn where you could go ahead and refresh it, put a catchy headline, utilize your experiences, and you pretty soon you start to see your connection. Your network is your net worth. Um,
yeah. It's not about the numbers. I mean, I've met
yeah.
people that celebrate the numbers, like, hey,
Oh
I
yeah.
keep
Don't
this
look at
many
my numbers. Yeah.
connections. You know what? Quality over quantity. I would rather
Yes.
look at like the 10 people that I have on there. Maybe it's not 10 people, but
Yes.
10 people and say, I know where we've met, we've nurtured this relationship, we keep in touch. Some people maybe
Yes.
you'll meet yearly, but here's one thing that I learned recently that I want to like you all to implement. I didn't do this before. Before a conference, whether you go to it or not, it works a little bit more if you go to the conference. But
Mhm.
so for example, I'll use RSA. RSA is a big conference, big investment. Not everyone has a luxury to go. So we had the opportunity to go. So what I did, someone told me this, a mentor, look through the speakers, the schedule. And in this case, it doesn't happen with all conferences, but with RSA, they had to upload their slides on there.
Oh,
And on my way there in the plane, I had 4 hours from Chicago, and I opened my laptop. We had free Wi-Fi. I log into the RSA website. I look at the schedule. I was able to narrow down with the topics that interested me. And I I don't know how many slides I looked at, but I did look at quite a lot of them.
Hmm.
So why I did that was because I was already putting in the work. I didn't want to just want to send a connection request to one of the speakers, say, excited for your talk, and like not have it be personalized. But one, I connected with the topics that interested me. I skimmed through their presentation. I grabbed one thing that I found insightful or I was curious about. And then I went to that speaker's LinkedIn profile, and I sent a message.
Oh, I
You
love
really
that.
need to. I know, right? I didn't
Yes.
have to do this before,
Just like a
but
regular, yes, just like you broke the
it
ice. That's what I
works.
mean. Remove the whole hierarchy. Remove
Yeah,
just when we look at each other as a
exactly.
one-on-one human, we're like, oh, that was so easy, right?
And a lot of them
It's
were
less
like sea
intimidating.
level, like sea level. I'm like, oh, why would they accept me? It's like, yeah, I still do that.
Why
Don't do that.
not?
But
Why not? Why
it,
not? I would say yes.
yes, it's like, but it's sometimes it's like, oh, like, okay, great. I mean, people want to connect, but it's like, what is personalized about it? Um, it's don't just do things to do them and say like, oh yeah, I want to grow my network, but do them with purpose and intent because like you'll be surprised how it works out later because if you align yourself, let's say you want to be in workforce development for cybersecurity, you look at the speakers that spoke about that, you look at their slides, you send a little prep note, or it doesn't have to be slides. A lot of speakers submit an abstract for their talk.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you pull away from that and say, hey, I'm very much excited to learn about this particular thing. This is my exposure to this type of work. Um, hey, I won't get a chance to go at this conference, but I read that you're going to be speaking about this. Is there a chance I can, learn a little bit from your presentation, or can you share those slides? Because I'm not able to go to a conference. Depending on the person, most people love to talk about their interests, right, and what they were going to speak about. So that is one thing that I learned recently. I'm like, ooh, I should probably have done that with so many conferences I went to. Um,
I like
I
that. That's really great. Like that is something that is so simple, but yet seems so hard. But I love how
right.
you broke it down. And this lived experience just goes to show how, when you believe in yourself and just what's the worst? They don't respond. That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. But also it's important to get to a level of have somewhat of a trail, right? Like once that person goes to check out your profile, don't think of it as, oh, I need to have a perfect profile for them to like see me, but think about it this way. If you are so aligned with the person you reached out to and they have an employment opportunity and they
Yes.
go to your profile, that's their like few seconds of their call they can make. Do I really message this person back? Do I just accept them or do I take the conversation further? So in the about me section, I would recommend people focus on that. And then we talked in the podcast too, the episode for the featured, you, Donna, you were giving that advice. Put
Mm-hmm.
the, let's say community or
Yes.
volunteer, work, put it in the
Yes.
featured section. So it's like up there because it's like a resume. People scan it. So if
Yeah.
what you put out there at the beginning doesn't resonate, you're
Yes.
likely going to miss that reply back. It's just going to be like maybe an accept, right?
Yes.
So we
Yes.
do things with intent here.
Yes, I love that. It's all about being intentional. And that's something that's resonating with the theme that I hear you talking. I'm like, it's all about the intentional. It's resonating. I don't know. You're gonna listen to the playback, but I love
I,
it. Yeah.
I do want to
It's
make sure
coming
we didn't
through.
skip a question here. It was for someone transitioning into GRC or healthcare compliance. What skills or experience make a candidate stand out to hiring managers early? GRC
If
or
you
healthcare compliance?
if you have any experience with processes such as standing up processes, documenting processes, mapping processes, and especially policies, right? If your role had any input or output with either being part of an assessment, being part of an audit, doing any type of risk management work, think about those transferable skills, right? And all of that can lend itself into a GRC role, whether it's healthcare or on any other industry, right? It's thinking about um, your looking at your background and I'm going back to spotting your hidden superpowers is look at your technical acumen when it comes to what type of tools did you use when it came to doing any type of risk assessment work or any audit work or any compliance work. Um, you know, what type of teams did you work with when it, start to think about the cross-functional level of teams. What type of engagement was it you are leading, or are you facilitating? Are you presenting? All of that has to do also with governance, risk, and compliance, because sometimes you have to consolidate this information. Are you gathering? Are you doing reporting, right? Because there's also a reporting aspect, like whether, and not just from a data analytics, it could be like at a very high level. Trending and analysis. Do you have any trending and analysis background? And that could be like that you were looking at something from your team's month over month, right? That could lend itself, right? Did you do any quality controls, any um, QC work? That could be work that could lend itself into the GRC space. When you're talking about compliance, it's really about making sure that you're following rules, you're following regulations, you're making sure that that is being adopted, that teams are adhering to it, that you're either being a liaison or a champion of it, or helping create it, manage it, or you're reporting on it. But in all aspect, you will need to learn that organization or that enterprise or that domain's guardrails and requirements, because every business and any industry is going to be different. So it's going to be really about, have you been in a role that has really been about really structured, and you have to stay within very like tight guardrails, and if so, you could those are skills that you could lend itself into a GRC role.
No, I love it. That's great advice. And honestly, if you don't know, sometimes we have the experience and we just don't know how to talk about it. I mean, I use an LLM. Like, I go in there and treat it as like a coaching session. Don't give it everything about you, but be honest. Say like, I want to transition into GRC. This is my background, and this is the type of work I've done. And tell it, help me craft a story about how my skills are transferable into this. Ask clarifying questions along the
Yeah,
way until you're 100% sure this will sound great
I
for
love
a
it.
job in GRC.
I love
Uh,
it. It's about the prompts, right? Knowing
yeah.
like it's the
Yeah.
prompts that you put in it. It's going to be empowering to what the results are going to be. Absolutely.
Another question, do you have any advice on how to learn, understand, and be able to talk about the NIST cybersecurity framework?
That's a good one, right? There's so much to learn. I mean, really, I would say learn the fundamentals. I mean, you don't, it's going to be very important when it comes to um, that role, that you are very in line with what the company's requirements are to what that NIST framework is. It really is about learning, about going on. It's going to be about practice. Um, it really is about practice and learning, and really making sure that whatever company that you're stepping into, that you're knowing how to apply those regulations. Um, and it's really talking about to your teams, what does it mean? How are we going to break down this requirement for us in plain language? And sometimes that's how simple it is. Um, yeah.
Uh, I'd say break it down into like components, piece by piece, and treat them
Domain.
as like
Yep.
mini, yeah, domains, and like sort of like what we talked about earlier, creating your own network, reaching out to all these people and asking about what their business unit does, and then add to this layer of um how do you implement this, right? Like what has your experience been? And they don't have to mention about specific employers or anything like that, but they can talk about like actual experience and how they've done it. So when you do have that 30-minute or 15 to 20-minute conversation with a person that you reach out to on LinkedIn, this can be one of your questions if you want to go
Yeah.
into GRC. How did you implement it? You know, it's such a like big
It,
thing, right? Like how did you break it down in like different
it-
domains and
Absolutely.
components?
Yeah.
Um,
No, the really good question. So most of that is already like, you're going to have a compliance team who is, or an enterprise compliance team or governance risk team who is doing a lot of the mapping of the NIST with your company's. book of business and what the requirements are made um, are expected from them, and not only just their requirements as an enterprise, but also um, what are your clients and your obligations, right? So it really is larger conversations than just one team. It
Mm.
really is a series of conversations with multiple teams, and maybe even bringing in legal and privacy in these conversations, because you do not want to misinterpret any of these requirements, um, because they are very tied to a lot of security controls, and especially when it comes to audits and assessments, you want to be able to make sure that your processes and your policies are written in such a way that it's going to meet that requirement time over time, regardless of whatever assessment. So that's why I think it's a complex conversation. I think it's important for you to, yes, I love the idea of breaking it down by domains, definitely having that baseline knowledge, but it takes a mapping exercise and larger
Mm.
conversations with multiple teams, and then learning it once you're embedded in the enterprise and saying, okay, what is my role and having to uphold this? Is it from an audit perspective? Is it just adoption, making sure that I work with teams to ensure that they're adopting it? Is your role in that space? And then you'll be able to know how to better navigate that requirement as it's
Hope-
required by your teams. Yeah.
Hopefully we answered that the way you were sort of like expecting, but if not, like
Yeah.
let us know again. And then we do have 4 minutes left. So here's one question for you. Have you felt the impact of anti-DI political environment in cybersecurity?
I think those are two different conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
I really feel that those conversations are definitely important to have, but I will share that there is definitely opportunity in cybersecurity in the talent pipeline to grow. We know that there is 24% of women in tech, and there is a lot of opportunity for many communities to be able to be broadly more represented in the talent pipeline. We understand that innovation happens when all voices are at the table. So, having diverse solutions and ideas will only bridge and move us forward and in the momentum in the industry, whatever space that is, right? But with cybersecurity at the forefront, right? So um, we need to have different voices and different opinions, absolutely, so that we can make sure that when we're innovating, and especially when it comes to AI, that we are being
Mm.
responsible and we are creating tools, products, and systems that are affecting everybody and amplifying all voices in all communities. So, is there opportunity for the talent pipeline to grow in multiple facets? Absolutely. I don't think that it's so much about any climate. I think it's really about um, having those doors really open up for communities that have already done the work, gotten the certificates, gotten the studies, done the communities of practice. The merit is there. We just need the doors to be opened, the bridges to be built, the ladders to be put down so that we could climb up, and that together all voices are amplifying and securing a digital space where we could all thrive.
That's right, Lorena. And how do we do that? Honestly, like we have to talk
Yeah,
with each
it's
other
really,
more. It's like
yeah.
there's so much
That's
more we
another
like.
session. I only got two
It's
minutes. And
just that we got to talk to each other more. That's the answer, really. We have so much more in common than we think. And we do have one last question. What resources or publications do you recommend to stay up to date in cyber? Or maybe what's your favorite one?
oh, that's so great. Thank you for asking. Okay, well, it's always important to make sure that you maintain up to date with NIST, and of course with CISA, making sure that we know what regulations are happening at the top when it comes to administration and governance regulations. It's important to be in the know. Um, Another organization I would say is read up on the International Organization for Standards, so ISO. Make sure that you're keeping up with the policies, governances, and then I would also learn up about keeping also high trust alliance, making sure from a auditing and assessments, you're keeping in the know. And then another one would be let's see, um, the system and organization controls. They're like the CSA, the SOC too, so that you could just from that space you could maintain up to date. So you have a couple of a different flavors, some governance for compliance ones, some more technical, and then more from a government perspective, just to see, be in the know to know what's coming down the pike.
Amazing. Muchas gracias, Lorena. It's been a pleasure to have you on. If you have more questions and you want to follow up with Lorena one-on-one, connect with her on LinkedIn. She does a lot of amazing community work, but not only. So you know where to find us, LinkedIn, Discord, Raizo's Discord, and we'll see you on the next podcast next month.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great one, all. Thank
Gracias.
you. Bye bye.